Hey guys. So today I felt like doing a piece on relational presence and different methods of relational presence and what it is. Um, so relational presence for me, it's an umbrella term, right? There are probably other words for it, but presence, obviously, if you're tuned to meditation, being in a present state, um, exuding presence, being in the moment, all that is being present. And then relational is not being by yourself, but being like in relation to someone else or to a group of people. Um, so so the various methodologies for relational presence. Um, you can obviously do it with a friend without any other context. You can do eye gazing, that's a lot of people do that. So you basically look in each other's eyes and you see what comes up, and maybe you share something or you're in complete silence. And I've done some of that, and then there are kind of more structured ways, or even like copyright type of methods, where you go and you have accredited teachers that teach you things. And I want just to touch on a couple of things that I've tried in the past, and potentially it resonates with you. Um, so the first thing I've tried, and that's actually quite a long time ago, I think probably 10 plus years ago, or shortly after I arrived in New Zealand, so probably more like 14 years ago, 13, 14 years ago. I tried something called speaking circles. So you can look it up, you can Google it, speaking circles. And I was kind of, I wanted to try out a different way to hold my talks, because obviously as a scientist, you speak, you have meetings, you present your work in front of colleagues, and I was just curious, when I really started to go deep into my own spirituality. I'm like, well, like, and I hate it, I'm not the person who um, kind of lip syncs or like rehearses talks, or even learns them by heart, and then you just basically like a robot, you just basically give your speech, give your talk about the data you observed, and it's all very robotic, and I didn't like that. So I never done it. So my method was always to prepare, of course, the slideshow in a way that is very logical, and okay, that makes sense, and then I would talk about that, and then I would introduce that, and then I would talk about these results, and then I would have a conclusion. So the slide talk itself would be very in a logical progression of what I want to be able to talk about, but then I just basically rock up and then I just talk, which means that typically I run over time, because it's not like to the minute, to the second. I don't rehearse, so I just talk about things that are on the slide, and sometimes I even change my mind. But so I was always in that mindset of being a bit more natural. And then the speaking circles, what it is so it has nothing to do with science whatsoever. It's it's a bit more. It's like a spiritual way of public speaking, I guess. So typically, how it's structured, so you basically rock up in an evening, and there's a speaking circle. You don't have to have any previous experience. You can just go there and see what happens. And so typically you have a small little room, or can also be a bit bigger. And then there's a rotation. So everyone has to, or is encouraged to. You don't have to do anything, but like that would defy the point of actually going there. So everyone stands up, and one by one you go to the front, and then you face the public, you face the crowd. And what happens next can be quite magical. Like, you don't have to say anything. You can say things. You can say whatever you want. You can You can stay in silence, but the really important part is really to connect to your audience, to so not avoiding looking at people, staring at the ground, fiddling with your hands. So being it kind of teaches you the ability to stand in front of a crowd and not go into not hiding, not go into automatic, oh, I'm just gonna say everything I rehearsed 1,000 times. No, you just stand there and you connect. And sometimes you can start with connecting by just standing there, and there's nothing wrong with being in silence. And then perhaps there's something coming into your mind and you say something, but you go through the crowd, you connect one by one with every single person in the room, if it's possible, if the number is not too big. And so it's so someone, and so the leader of the speaking circles is at the back, times it. I don't know, it might start with 2 minutes or do 5 minutes or perhaps even 10 minutes. But you stand there and you connect to your audience, which is something that most people wouldn't do. In a professional setting, you're just there to give content. You're not there to really connect. Although there might be settings where you do connect, or people that do connect. And an important aspect of that is once you're done, once the time is up, you get, at least that's how I remember it, you get one word of feedback from every single person in the room. So, it could be like, you might feel utterly uncomfortable being there, right? And everyone looks at you, and it's all about connection, and you interact with every single person in the room, and you feel uncomfortable. You're outside your comfort zone. You feel weak, or you feel judged, or maybe you feel great. That's fine too. And then you might get feedback words like strength, authenticity. You actually get real feedback from the audience, which you never do usually, right? You basically, in a professional setting, if you don't like public speaking, you basically do your thing, and then you run back to your place, and then you look at the ground because you're like, oh my God, that was so bad. Or you have a completely twisted opinion of how people perceived you. So here, not only do you connect really with your audience, but then you get that authentic feedback. And sometimes you're surprised. You're like, wait, what? This is how the audience perceive me? And so you learn how you actually land with your audience. And so it can lead to really significant surprises where you're like, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't know that. And same thing when you're in the audience, you basically interact, and then you give feedback, and then it also allows you, it's not just about the content, and then you just sit there and you're bored and you're thinking about what you're gonna eat for dinner or something like that. You almost have to think, okay, what do I get from this? Like, what is my impression of that person, and how do I perceive them? So it's kind of really interesting exercise, and typically in an evening you go through several rotations of that. So if you're not in a large group, if it's like up to 10 people, you typically do that like several times over. There's a tea break in between, where you can actually talk to people also more openly. Oh yeah, I really love that, or why did you do that? You can do that, or you can just relax and just talk about, what are you doing, professionally? Where do you live? Or do you like whatever? But this is it's an interesting way to look at public speaking from a more connection, spiritual point of view, of being present with people instead of just hiding behind a facade and just being cold, professional, just provider of content, and then that's that, and then either you don't care about the feedback, or you're just happy that you provided the content you had to. But yeah, speaking circles, I've done that for a couple of years at least, until I moved away, and then it was too far away, so I couldn't really drive there anymore. and it was New Zealand, so it's like access to these kind of things, was already kind of restricted. I was quite happy when I saw that happening where close to where I was living, and I think the coach was she was British, I think. So yeah, speaking circle. So look it up, and perhaps it resonates with you. Perhaps you find something that's close to you, close by. But I really benefited from that. I think it opened up a few things, and there's this aspect of being exposed to these kind of experiences. I probably would have been reluctant starting these kind of things or experimenting in my work, because you're supposed to be professional, it's supposed to be give data, blah blah blah. So I'm not sure how it would have landed. And that's a general theme, at some stage you don't actually, you might not really care whether your audience is available for that kind of presence. And it can also be that once you experience with that and you like doing it, it could be that you're just happy having a one-way street. You basically are present with the entire audience, and perhaps they are unable to be present with you, and they just like want to have content and give me the content and stop looking at me, or stop because they then feel judged because they're out of their comfort zones. So it's kind of interesting to experiment with that in a setting where everyone is on the same page. Like, okay, we're here to be present and see what's happening in that setting. And then you can, once you're comfortable, or you like explored a bit how you react when you're there, and how you feel, then you can experiment with groups where no one's on the same page. You're not going to start your scientific talk, by saying, well, hang on, we're going to do this thing where I'm trying to connect with you guys, or I try to be more present. That's I mean, you could, it's not impossible to do it, but I certainly didn't do it. But I brought through, that was an experience that I kind of translated in my way to speak in front of audiences. And then what I more recently did, which started probably a couple of years ago, was, well, it's known internationally as circling. So again, it's a trademark term, circling. And I connected with people from, well, Circling Europe, because I think Circling, the trademark, I think it's held in the US. And then I was drawn to go into the Circling Europe website, and now, because of complicated trademark issues, now it's called Transformational Connection. And I did a couple of weeks, and unfortunately there's none of that in New Zealand, or none that I could easily connect with, so I did all of that virtually via Zoom, so at weird hours of the morning, 4 in the morning or something like that. But first I did a couple of weeks, I think, of introductory workshops, so I think it was once a week, a couple of hours or something like that. And then, because I really was interested in exploring that really deeply, I did what's called the SAS. So it's kind of a quite in-depth exploration of your transformational connection or circling skills, and then also an accreditation to lead in your own right. And I'll probably at some stage provide transformational connection practice on my website at some stage, potentially, if people are interested. So the SAS was 6 months roughly, probably 4 to 5 hours of circling a week, so quite intensive, quite a commitment, especially if you have to wake up really, really early in the morning in New Zealand. And what it is, so in comparison to speaking circles, where one person really goes up front and then talks to other people and connects that way, in circling with transformational connections, there's different formats, and it gets really, really interesting really fast, and it can also explode in your face very fast. So there's things like So hang on, let me start with the premise of transformational connection is again relational presence. So we are present with each other, we're fully there, and the goal is to explore what is happening within us, within the group. What is your experience being with these people? And with as little filters as possible. So you need to, again, I'm not going to go through all the different terminologies or what the rules are, but you need to trust your experience. You know, if you have a particular experience, if you're scared or you have a bodily sensation or you're really attracted to a particular person or you particular to the contrary, you feel really rejected by a person, or do you feel that there's like this weird energetic push from a person? All of that is encouraged to be shared if it rings true to you. If you feel like you want to be, and that's a fine line between what you feel wants to be expressed, what do you want to share, what are you not comfortable sharing, and that itself is an experience. Like, why are you holding back? So being with each other and exploring what's happening within us, within the group. That's the point of it, to really sink and really go deep and touch what's there in all of its forms and shapes. So there are different formats. So one of the formats is a birthday circle. So birthday circle is nothing else than one person gets the attraction or the attention and the focus of the entire group. So it's not really like speaking circles, because in speaking circles, only the person that stands there actually speaks. The other ones are silent. In a birthday circle, it's an exploration of that person. So the group tries to understand, how does it feel to be you? What's happening right now with you? And can I get closer to that? Can I experience that? And what happens in me if I start to be in your world, you know? And so it's always a multiple orientation street, right? So the arrows go in every single direction. So every single one in the group interacts with the birthday circlee, and the circlee interacts with whomever he wants or whatever is happening at the moment. So it's anybody can speak. And then you explore, maybe for 20-25 minutes, you explore the world of that person. And it opens first of all, if you're the center of attention, you know, first of all, that might be uncomfortable to you, or you might love it. You know, you might want to be the center of attention, but then it's the center of conscious attention, right? It's like, oh, how does that feel? So it goes pretty deep. So even if you love to be the center of attention, maybe you're not accustomed to that type of depth, you know, where we typically go. And also, but even like if you circle someone, or if you're the person in the periphery, not the birthday circlee, but in the periphery in the group, you can also have a very potent experience just exploring that person's world. And perhaps there are things that resonate, perhaps there are things that trigger you because you had similar experiences, or perhaps it triggers you because you feel that, oh no, that you don't like it, or there's something repulsive to you. So it can go in any type of direction. So these are the birthday circles. Then there's something called surrendered leadership, where there's always a leader in it. So there's always someone who's in charge of the group. But in surrendered leadership, it's like there's no one is really circled by others. Everyone circles everyone. And it can be kickstarted by someone saying, oh yeah, I really feel today, what's happening with you, X, Y, or Z, you know? And then it starts with that. So surrendered leadership means everyone is to some extent leading, or can lead, or can give a direction to the group. And then what happens to other people if someone gives a particular direction and maybe some people don't like it? or like there's a couple of egos in there, and a couple of alpha characters, and they both want to lead, and then suddenly um, so this is kind of a free form, and it takes a lot of skill from the ultimate leader, from the person that actually is the most experienced person in the room, to kind of hold it all together and provide an experience that everyone values, that everyone profits from, even if it can become really uncomfortable when people start to hone in on you, and oh, today I feel that there's a sadness coming from you, and then you're like, maybe there is sadness, and maybe you don't want to talk about it, and so how does it feel to be open with people? And they're not family, they're not like, obviously after a while, especially if you do the SAS for like 6 months online. If you do it in person, I think it's like a few weekends, right? So 4 days full on together. So it's a different intensity, but it's similarly deep. So it's not family, but you get to know people fairly well. So at some stage, the level of depth that is reached is quite significant. And I was really interested to see how I would react to that, because I came out of a period where I was, again, quite exploring myself a lot. So and and I came across circling really at the right point where I felt, oh, I need to re-enter some kind of a social life where I can see how everything that I discovered about myself applies to relationships, to interrelationships, to how it applies to me interacting with the world. And I thought that this would probably be a perfect introduction or reintroduction to that, in just like sliding into a conscious relating to other people and see how it goes. And I must say I really loved it, and that's why I'm also keen to do it, to continue doing it with other people, or even with clients in the future. It's particularly valuable, I think, for people who are not in touch with their feelings, who discover this for the first time, where, hang on, I can, first of all, a person gives me their fullest attention and try to understand me and try to be with me in my world. That for some people is already mind-blowing, because they're used to people, to abusive relationships where no one gives a shit about you, like it's all about getting something out of this. Here it's really, no one tries to get anything out of it. It's just really to get to know each other, to be in each other's world, to experience something together. So that by itself for some people is kind of mind-blowing. And if you, particularly if you've been not hiding something, but suppressing potentially aspects of yourself, or if there are things that are hidden, now it's going to be triggering, because it's likely that that everything that you're trying to hide or trying to suppress will come out at some stage, just because, well, I guess it has to, right? Because even if no one actively tries to find it in you, like even if you get the attention of someone, and even if no one really is digging, oh yeah, there must be something wrong with you, or there must be something that you're hiding, so what is it? Even if nothing like that happens, I think because you see the group and you see people having deep experiences, you actually want to go there as well. So it's almost that you don't want to hide anything anymore, you don't want to suppress anymore, so everything bubbles up. And it can be quite potent, and that's why you have to have experienced people in the group to manage this kind of situation where things might just blow up and might get raw and unpleasant. So although the concept is beautiful, oh yeah, let's be conscious together, well, be careful what you're asking for, because there might be things that are just ask to be processed right then, right there, and then someone gets a decent experience, and then someone else getting triggered, and then it kind of blows up left, right, and center. So it's not necessarily like that, but it can be. And I really particularly enjoy just being present. I had so much work done on myself before that I mean, I didn't have any trick. Like, I believe that I worked everything that could have been triggered or blown up. I already It's something I've been working on for decades. So there was nothing really underneath the surface that just would have blown up. I was just I was just happy to be in a group where the common understanding is we're here to be present with each other. And it was such a relief to be on the same page with people where we could just connect. And sometimes when I did just, you can also do one-on-one circles, of course, where, so either you circle that other person, how I'd like to know how it is to be you, what's happening inside of you. Or you do the equivalent of surrender leadership, just two people, right? Where it's not a discussion, it's always still, what's happening with you? Even if a question arises, I'm curious about what are you doing in your life, or you don't have to answer it. You're just like, so you're curious about it. And, I feel really honored that you feel curious, that you want to learn more about me. So it's more about what's happening in between. It's not about answering questions. It's what's happening. And so you can do that in pairs as well. And especially in pairs, when I got paired up with people that also fairly deep, spiritual, or having propensity towards silence, you can just sit and it's almost like eye gazing, where you just experience each other without saying anything. And then once the circle is closed, there's like, the circle has been opened and closed, so it's like a safe space. It's not just, let's meet, and then hang on, has it started yet? So there is someone's leading the circle and opens the circle, and then it's closed, and then you can feedback again, like, yeah, really. I mean, when we were sitting in silence, I really felt that and that and that. You don't have to share it once while you're doing it, but afterwards you can feedback and just talk to each other. I wouldn't say like normal person, but you can have a conversation about it, instead of just really focusing on the pure methodology of circling or transformational connection. You can actually talk to each other. And it was interesting because this online experience, it wasn't like where I did the physical speaking circles, where during tea breaks, we actually had a decent chat and we got to know each other. Here, because it was all virtual, there was none of that. And so we hardly knew anything about each other's lives, but we just dug deep and experienced each other on a different level without knowing much about each other at all, which was quite an interesting experience. But yeah, I want to talk about these ways of being in relational presence, because especially, I mean, those structure things, I think you can obviously have that in the back of your mind to be present when you meet other people on the street, or if you interact with like people or customers, or going to shops, you can do that. But those structured ones that are quite intense, you bring something with you, and it gives you a different, not that you really circle or have transformational connection outside of it, but I think you can feel if people are open to it in your normal day life. And potentially it gives you an ability to express yourself more, to sink into the other person a bit more, to be a bit more aware of all these dynamics and what's happening, and you can see when people are triggered, and it helps you tremendously in terms of interaction with other people. Then there are things I think that are missing, because there's, so in no way, shape, or form should you ever try to help people. If someone's having a difficult experience, you just You just are in that experience. It's not about helping each other or, oh, I think you should really do that, when you did X, Y, and Z. And that's what I would also like to explore in a different type of coach-client relationship, where it's a bit more about discussing problems and maybe addressing them and coaching them through things. So that coaching aspect is not part of transformational connection or the circling. It's more about being in the raw experience, which by itself does not need to be changed or altered. It is what it is, and you learn a lot from that. So it's interesting to really dig into those methods that are quite structured. There's the rules or guidelines. So there are things that you need to be in that method to be applying those kind of trademark methodologies. That there are particular points that you need to follow. And then you see how it suits you, what kind of value it has in your life, and then there might be things that are missing but might be covered by different methodologies, or you kind of integrate all the methodologies and create your own. I mean, sky's the limit. But I'm kind of really interested to explore these things and to apply them in the future with clients, and bring my own twist to all these things, and see how my own how I see my purpose is to really help people that wish to be helped. There needs to be a clear consent to trying to see what's happening in the person's life, and trying to see how my life experience could be valuable in helping someone navigate out of a difficult situation. So that's it from me. Relational presence. Look it up. Maybe you want to do one of those courses that I mentioned. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.